Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Paul, and I am a nerd, and this is the June 2013 TABS 3 virtual user group meeting, the very first one we've ever had. And I know you're thinking, I've been to plenty of TABS 3 virtual user group meetings, but you're wrong. You've been to the TABS 3 Practice Master virtual user group meetings, and this is the inaugural episode of the TABS 3 only virtual user group meeting. If you're attending, it's probably because you went to our website and signed up, so you probably already know that at 2 o'clock this afternoon we will have, 2 o'clock that is Eastern Time, we will have our Practice Master virtual user group meeting. So we're very happy to have the whole half hour to talk about TABS and accounting related issues. Today we are going to just talk about TABS, but this is where we'll talk about accounting, accounts payable, general ledger, and trust related issues as well from this point forward. And then, as is always been the case, on the last Monday of the month, but at 2 o'clock, we will now have every month our Practice Master virtual user group meeting. So welcome, everyone. I'm feeling very old today for two reasons. One, my 16-year-old just came back with his used car that he bought, which makes me feel way, way old. But at the same time, we had lunch with everyone in the company today, and we got to have Joanna, our youngest employee, join us for lunch, and that makes me feel old because she is also 16 years old. And so I'm surrounded by young people today, being as old as I am, feeling very, very old. So we'll try to take my mind off that, and we will start talking about TABS. Today we are going to talk about split fee billing. I'm going to take that topic, and then when I'm done with that, Mary Jo is going to talk to you about setting rates. There are a lot of different ways to set rates, and we're gonna show you just about every one we can think of. But before that, a little bit of housekeeping. For those of you who may not know, this is the GoToWebinar control panel that we're looking at on my screen. You probably at one point had something that looked just like this on your screen. Some of you may still be looking at this, and if you are, you may want to use this button here that looks like an arrow pointing to the right to slide this panel out of the way. That's what this button will do. Once that panel is slid out of the way, this will become a button pointing to the left, and at that point, if you press it, it will slide this panel back into view. That is how you might type a question if you have a question but are feeling shy, because any question that you type here will be presented to our humble moderator, Leanne, who will interrupt us at the appropriate time, ask your question on your behalf, and then let us go on. If you have follow-up questions as your question is being answered, just keep typing them, and Leanne will keep feeding them to us until we get the question answered. So don't be shy, even if you're using this method to ask your question. Now, if you're not shy in the slightest, you can also use this button here, which looks like a hand with an arrow pointing upwards in front of it. That means raise your hand. Same sort of a concept. Leanne will recognize that you have a question, and at the appropriate time, she'll interrupt us, but she will unmute you, and you'll get to ask your question on your own behalf. So once again, use this to get rid of the control panel. Use this again to slide it back. Ask your questions here, and use this button to raise your hand. So without any further ado, we will go back into TABS, and I'll talk about split fee billing. Split fee billing, as the name implies, means that you have a case or a matter for which multiple people are paying. Now, we have a lot of clients that use this. A lot of times it's insurance companies. It's quite common in the insurance defense world to split bills among insurance companies. I have a client in Central Ohio that is the country's preeminent dairy farm law firm, and they have a lot of split fee billing, but here they're splitting it between dairy farms that are having this firm represent them and pushing certain legislation through, and so they'll have 3 or 4 dairy farms that go in on a matter to have this firm represent them in front of their state representatives to try and get certain legislation passed. There are a lot of different reasons to split billing. We're going to skip talking about what they are and get straight to the meat of the issue. At the end, I am going to talk to you about changes that are coming in version 17. Split fee billing has been around for a long time. You are about to see it in all its glory, and you're going to recognize probably right off that it's lacking a few things that they have thankfully added in version 17, which is due out in the fall. So We are showing you, of course, version 16.2. And at the end, we'll talk about how that's going to change. So the concept behind split fee billing is that you set up a client, and I have set up 851.00, and I've made it for Michael Larson, with Michael Larson as the contact. It's a case, it's Purdue versus Walmart. Now, we'll pretend that Michael Larson is an adjuster at an insurance company and is representing, I'm guessing, Walmart in this instance, if he's an insurance adjuster. And so when we go in and set up the two matters that we're going to bill to, they are not this one. This is what we call the main matter or the master matter. I have set up 851.01 as being also Michael Larson, and 851.02 I happen to have set up as Michael Larson, but I realize now that's kind of silly, so we're going to make it the we have another insurance company in here. I'm trying to think of who it is. Maybe we don't. Peterson, I believe. There we go. And we're going to make Peterson Insurance the second client. Now, what we have here is one master matter, and it doesn't matter who the client is here because this master matter is merely your repository for all your transactions. This is the matter that you log fees to. This is the matter that you post accounts payable advances to, or that you log any sort of expenses to. It is not the matter that you log payments to, but that's a different story. We'll get into that in a second. The 8501 is going to be the matter that we use to actually bill Michael Larson, and the 8502 is going to be the matter that we use to actually bill Peterson Insurance Company. So what we're going to do then is we're going to go out and put some fees in, just a couple real quick. We're going to say that Michael Jensen logged, oh, thank you very much. Mary Jo is helping me to realize my mistake here. I put that fee in on the wrong matter, 851.00. And we're going to bill, just let's say 1 hour to talk to Paul. We'll make it short and sweet because Paul has trouble talking and typing at the same time. And maybe we'll put another one in for a different timekeeper, and we'll make this one 2.5 hours, and it'll be a telephone conference with Bob. Now, I'm not going to get into too much exciting detail here as far as putting in fees and costs and advances and expenses. I'm just going to keep it simple for illustrative purposes. And let me get out of there. And so there we have it. We put some time in for that. Now, where do we tell it how this breaks down? We've got an agreement that Michael Larson is going to pay for 40% of the fees and costs and advances, and Peterson Insurance Company is going to pay for the remaining 60%. So what you do is you go into split fee billing under client. You identify who the main client is. You identify 851.01 as being one of the two splits, and you say that this particular split is going to be responsible for this much stuff, 40% of fees, 40% of expenses, 40% of advances, okay? It could be a different number here and a different number here, and in a minute we'll see what this remainder means. Then you go and you define in this instance we only have two splits, two people that are splitting. Oops. Didn't mean to do that. Hold on one second. And I think I just got out of there without saving that, so let me just, nope, I didn't. Okay, he's in there. So now let me go back up here and I'm going to do 851.02. I made the mistake of putting 851.02 up here. This is still the main client, 00, and this is the second split. And if I want, I can be lazy here because the rest of it's going to this guy. And so what it knows is that it's got the remainder there. Now, we know that's 60% across the board. It just puts it in as remainder. Because later on, I may add somebody else who's agreed to share 20%, and this guy's still going to pay the remainder. But that's the way it does it. 40% here, 60% there. And now everything that's put here will split the way we've defined it here among these two clients. So this does not have to be done before time is entered, because as you saw, I entered some time. But it does have to be done before the first split is done. So you go ahead, you proceed through the month, you enter time, you enter expenses, you enter costs, You do whatever you would do, and you do it all to 851.00. When you're ready, you go into statement preparation, you adjust split fee clients, you choose who you're splitting. Thank you. Thank you, Mary Jo. You choose who you're splitting. You can even do these sorts of things. We only want to split the transactions for June of 2013. You'll notice we don't have payments. Payments don't get entered on the main client. What happens is you enter transactions after you've defined your split or before, but then you make sure your split's defined. You do the split, which is what we're doing right now, and you end up with two different bills. Let's go ahead and finish this up. And now if we were to go into look at 851.00, they don't have anything in there anymore. But if we look at 851.01, they now have these split transactions. And if we look at 851.02, they now have these split transactions. Now, a couple things going on here that I want to point out. What it's done is it's split the hours, okay? Now, I want to make it perfectly clear that I picked some very nice hours to split. This can get ugly. Another thing I want to point out, I'm only doing this because they fixed this, so, is that you only have two decimal places here when you define the splits. Well, if you want to do a true third, you're going to have a little bit of trouble with two decimal points. You're going to have 33.33, 33.33, and 33.34. You can't get it any closer than that. A couple things just to note. Yes, I know. And so what you end up with then is Client Manager. If we were to print a bill for this guy, is that sort of an arrangement. Okay. Now, one thing you can have is different rates for different companies. Okay, because what it's doing is it's splitting the hours, then it's multiplying that by the rate to come up with the total amount due for this company, and then it's splitting the hours into the other company in this two-way split and multiplying it by the rates that are set up for them for these timekeepers and coming up with this amount. Now, what do you do if it's wrong? Can you unsplit it? No. That's one of the problems that's been there all along. Can you split the hours and the amount, or just the amount, all at the time of the split? No. So let's go over a couple of the things that have changed in version, or will be changing in version 17. First off, you don't get to see here, you'll notice, we don't get to see that this was really 1 hour and this was really 2.5 hours. All we get to see is how much this insurance company or whoever is getting split out at. In the new version, we'll be able to show the pre-split value or the split value on the statement, or both. So we can say this was 1 hour and your share is 0.6 hours, and this was 2.5 hours and your share is 1.5 hours. Another thing you can do is optionally include a summary of what was split. Right here we have a recap. This is a regular summary, but we have nothing that's showing us that this insurance company is paying this much and this insurance company is paying that much. That's another thing that's being added to version 17. You can split both the hours and the amount, or just split the hours. So you can say, hey, we don't want to just split the hours, we want to split the amount. So if you have 4 hours at $250 an hour, you can say we want to split the 4 hours into 2, or we want to split the amount into 500, or we just want to split the hours and let it multiply out the way it did here. So you have those options available in version 17. We can, as I pointed out, you only have 2 decimal places to define the splits in version 16.2. There will be 4 in version 17. So much easier to do a much closer third sort of split. You have 4 decimal places. In version 16.2 or earlier, you could not split fee credits or cost credits, and you will be able to in version 17. In version 16.2 and earlier, if you wanted to issue a fee credit or a cost credit, you had to do it individually to the post-split clients. Also in version 17, you can split the non-billable transactions and zero amount transactions. You were not able to do that either. If it was zero amount, it wouldn't split because there was nothing to split. There's now a split billing tab, and they've renamed the feature from split fee billing to split billing because it is truly more than just splitting fees. And then there's a new feature, they call it, it's part of the same thing, called undo split billing, and this is huge. In the past, you could not undo this. If you got your split wrong and you wanted to go back, you had to restore from a backup. So splitting was something that you made absolute certain you had exactly the way you wanted it before you actually performed it. And if you didn't discover an error that you had made or something that wasn't entered correctly to begin with and split wrong until later, you were in a lot of trouble because you had to go back to where you were with a backup or you had to recreate that bill. Now they have an undo split billing utility that lets you reverse the split billing process for individual clients. So we could basically say, make this go away and put it all back into 851.00. And that window shows the detail for a split, that new undo split billing window, allowing you to see amounts and percentages for each split. So you now have a place where you can go and look and see how all the splits broke down for a certain group of clients. And that is split fee billing. Leanne, do we have any questions? No questions, says Leanne, with her microphone still turned off. That's why people think they can't hear you, because you're always in the other room. Okay, Mary Jo, we're going to turn it over to you and have you talk about rates.
Okay, I'm going to talk about how TABS deals with timekeeper rates by matter. So we're going to...
You should have it.
Do I have control here?
You should now.
Okay, let me get out of here. So the first thing that when you set up a new timekeeper, or if you want to change an existing timekeeper's rates, we go under Setup, and we go to our timekeeper screen, and you can set up to 6 different hourly rates for each timekeeper. The first rate, hourly rate number 1, is what all the matters default to. So this would be your most commonly used rate. If your normal rate is $300 an hour, this is what you want in timekeeper rate number 1. If it were, if you have another rate that you use for nonprofit cases or something, and you want to give a reduced rate for that, and that's the next most common one that you use, or maybe you want to determine what the AARP 25% discount rate is. That could be 3, and so on. So you could just set up to 6 different rates here, knowing that hourly rate number 1 is the default. A lot of times people ask me, what is this effective date for the new rates? Let's say that it's November, and you have your annual meeting, and you know that all of the attorneys' rates are going to change January 1, and you get that list, and you know what those rates are. You can come in here and put in effective, I keep clicking on that, and I don't have a timekeeper selected, so let me pick somebody. If I click on the date, I can put in there 1/1/14, and I can go in and put in all those new rate structures. I leave these other rates here, and until January 1st, it will continue to bill these rates that I have defined over here. Anytime after January 1st, I can come in and move these rates, and I will take those rates and put them over here for my new default rates and leave this open for the next time that the rates go up or down, whatever you're adjusting. These will stay here if you forget and you don't come in. It's just going to automatically on 1/1 start charging these rates for each of the fees that you go in. These are, and again, default rates, not anything in stone. They always can be overridden in the fee entry. But you can start putting those in ahead of time. So it just makes things a little bit easier if you know in advance that this is going to happen. And then anytime after that date, just move them over so that this is clear for the next time. So that's the first place that we go to set up rates. The second thing is at the matter level. So I'm going to go get into a matter. I can get to a screen here. There we go. Okay, so we're going to go to the rate tab. And how TABS is set up to do the rate structure is the first thing it'll do is it'll look and see if there is a fee rate table defined. Right now I don't have anything defined, or it would actually say defined right here. But it's going to look out there and say, do you have a specific rate table that you've set up for this matter. And what a rate table does is it gives you the ability for this matter to say specific rates for each timekeeper that's working on this case. So regardless of those 6 rates that you've defined over underneath a timekeeper, you can just totally override that and say on this matter, timekeeper 1 is going to make this amount, timekeeper 2 is going to make this amount. And to set that up, you can just pick, let's say that timekeeper number 1 for Michael Larson is going to make $100 on this particular matter. I can save the rate, and it populates it down here. I can then say timekeeper number 2 is going to make $150 on this matter. And once I have saved this, and I've defined everybody that I want on this particular rate table, it will be then associated with this matter. Now, the other thing that you can do, you'll see up at the top here, we've got custom, shared, or use an existing table. I just set up a custom rate table. I don't have any predefined rate tables. I just made this one up for this particular matter. But let's say that we have a client that has, 100 matters, and we want to have the same rate table applied to each one, and I don't want to have to come in here to each matter and do this every single time. I can create one custom matter. Maybe it's on the 00 matter, or I have firms that use, client IDs like 1 through, 20 or something is all rate tables. And they just set up all of their custom rate tables. This can also be used for allocations. If you have a certain allocation structure that you have, that each timekeeper has a certain rate that needs to be applied out across matters, not just on one single client or matter, but all over the whole database that you just need to apply those particular rate tables to. You can define those ahead of time, and then you can come in and you can share them. So if I save this table for matter 85102, and on matter 85101 I want to share that table, let me save this one, and I'm going to come back out into this other matter. So I'm on 1. You can see I don't have 1 defined. I can say I want to use a shared table, and it's going to ask me which one I want to use. So I have one under 851.02, and it remembers that that's what it is, and I can apply and save that shared table to that one. So that makes it very easy to spread that out, and now I have 1 defined. So if I come in here and I'm ready to build this matter, Tabs is going to look at this, or put in a fee entry. It's going to look at this and see if I have anything defined. If I don't, I'm going to delete this table out of here. Get rid of this. And you can also put in, you can change rate tables. Let's say that you had one that you had defined and you have that spread out over several multiple matters. If the rate, and then the rate changes, or you want new rates. Again, just like you had on the timekeeper, you can come in and say effective 1/1, this rate table is going to go up, and you can change those rates, and it will push out to all the matters that it's shared with. So you don't have to individually go out there and change it. So for this particular one, I'm going to get out of here, and I guess I'm able to get that out of there. So it's going to look here first. If it's not defined, it's going to look at this next part here. You can define rates by level. So if you have senior partners and they're going to make a certain amount on this matter, and then associates are going to make this amount on this matter, and then paralegals, and these 9 levels correspond to your 9 levels that you have set up under the timekeeper. So if you go to your setup and go under timekeeper, right here where you've got your levels, whatever you've defined here, let me put in a timekeeper number again, these are the 9 levels that it's going to pull from. So you can set up whatever levels work for your firm, and then each one of these will correspond to this field in the matter. So I can come in and I can say that for this particular client, too many windows open, that I'm going to do this by rate. And I can say that this, senior partners are going to make $100, whatever, $200, and so on, all the way up across and define my table. So first tab is going to look, do you have a rate table defined? I'm going to use that. No. I'm going to look here, do you have a timekeeper level defined? No. Then I'm going to go down here, and I'm going to use the rate code that you pick from what you've defined over in the timekeeper table. So here you can see you've got the 6 rate tables right here that you've defined from under each timekeeper. So I can pick 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Now this is going to be for all timekeepers across the board. So if you have 4 timekeepers working on this particular matter and you choose timekeeper rate 1, it's going to look at each one of those timekeepers and see what their rate number 1 is, and that's what it's going to default to when they put a fee entry in. So it goes across the board, whatever all timekeepers rate number 1 is. Maybe this matter you only want to charge $150 an hour no matter who works on the case, and you don't want to go through that and define $150 for each matter or each timekeeper for this matter. You can choose hourly rate, and you can just put in $150, and it will go out and default to $150 no matter who's working on the case. Now you have to be careful with this, because if I put $150 in here and this is still on timekeeper rate number 1, this is not going to apply. This is only going to take effect if you have number 9 chosen down here. So you want to make sure that you have hourly rate and hourly rate. And in my opinion, that probably should be grayed out so that you can't do that, but it's not, so you have to be careful. So we're going to take that out. So that's where you would go to define all of the different types of rates. You do have a cost rate table as well, so those can again be saved and pushed out and shared. And one other thing, if you've created rate tables, let's say that you have your master rate tables that you want to share and apply to multiple matters. You don't have to go into each matter and say, okay, 851.01, 851.02, 03, 04, and choose that rate table. Under our client options, this is one of the things that you can push out in mass, and you can go under change client options, and you can go to your rates, select, and you can go ahead and do the rate tables. So you can choose your fee rate table, and after you've chosen your range, you're going to have to put in a client ID because it defaults to 0.0. So you put in your client range, and then you would say share this, share the rate table that you want. So you'll have to go out and share it with whatever rate table it is that you're going to push out to all those matters. And when you hit OK, it's going to go ahead and assign that rate table automatically to all 100, 200, whatever matters that are out there. So it's easy to set up a rate table and then share it with everybody, make a change to the master rate table, push it out to everybody, or just go by the regular timekeeper rate 1. And again, these are defaults. They're not set in stone. If you go to put in a fee entry and that particular fee entry needs to be a different rate, you always have the option to override any of these and just manually type in a rate. So, any questions?
Yes, Mary Jo, there's one question.
Okay.
The question is, was your first rate example the only one you can put in ahead of time for an upcoming date? Do you remember that first one where...
Over underneath the timekeeper?
Yeah,
right,
where
right
the
over
rate's
here?
going to change later. Right.
Mm-hmm.
Is that the only place you can do that?
Yes, this is by timekeeper here. So if you need to push out those rates, or you know ahead of time that you're going to change those rates for any of the timekeepers, you might only be raising rates for 2 out of the 10, or 2 out of the 99, or 100, whatever it is. You can come in, but this is the place you'd put it, and then after that date, you move it, and then it's available again. So if you, and you can also do it in the rate tables. We talked about, the new rate there for the rate tables, but that's only for the rate table. This is for the timekeeper itself for these 6 rates that you can push out. But this is the only place here to do it on an individual timekeeper level for all entries and not tied to a table. Did I answer that? Is that good? I don't know. Let me know if there's a follow-up question there.
Okay, I do have another question. I don't know if it's a follow-up on the same. Hold on. This question is, can you set rates by category?
You can set, I don't think by category, but you can do it by transaction code. We do have category or transaction code rates that you can apply here. So if you had some fee transaction codes and you wanted to say that a telephone conference, that's a bad example, but if you draft and revise something maybe and that's a set rate that you're going to charge, you can do that. But what gets confusing is unless you are using that particular designation on a client that you're always going to bill the transaction code amount. You saw that over here that we've got a T code amount or rate. Unless you're using number 7 and saying T code rate or T code amount, when you do a bill, it's not, let's say you had a mix, and maybe you had some time that was hourly and you were billing, and then you also had some time that was T code based, and you're trying to do that, you have to choose one or the other, and so that can mess up you know, when you're doing, you're get some things you're not expecting. You'll be expecting that to default to that T-code amount, and it doesn't necessarily do that. So, but not by category. I don't have a category way there. Okay.
Okay. No other questions?
Okay.
Every time she says that, I think of a lawyer that's done with his cross-examination.
No further questions.
No further questions. Well, there we have it. Split fee billing and rates, everything, maybe everything you ever wanted to know. If you find that we've missed something or that you have a question that you didn't ask or you didn't think of till later, please email us. It's paul.purdue, like the school, not the chicken, P-U-R-D-U-E, or maryjo.boyd, B-O-Y-D, and Mary Jo is all together, maryjo.boyd, and that's at attorneycomputersystems.com. Paul.Purdue or maryjo.boyd at attorneycomputersystems.com. Next month, we have topics already set for Tabs 3 Virtual User Group in July. We're going to talk about trust integration in Tabs and about fee comp rules, how to set up the, kind of like the rates that we just set up, you can also set up fee compensation rules that help you take money that comes in and divide it up before it gets divided up between the working timekeepers. So we'll talk about how that works and show you how that works. In case you're interested, I'll also tell you that our Practice Master Virtual User Group meeting topics for July will be using the timer in Practice Master and also using process timer records to take all the different things that you can do in Practice Master and turn them into fees. So Mary Jo will talk about using the timer to time things that will then turn into fees, and I'll talk about using process timer records to take all the different things, tasks, calendar items, notes, emails that are journaled, timer records, and turn them into fees. So without any further ado, we will bid farewell, and everybody have a good month. We'll see you next month. Thanks very much.